Hey, what is up, guys? Welcome to Minds Behind the Music. I'm your host, LA. Today is the last post or last podcast that I will be showing for 2020. Boy, has this year been a wild ride. What I mostly want to talk about today is the mostly the reflections on what's been happening this year, and not just with me, but with everyone in general, everyone in music, and everyone that I know. But I'm going to first talk about how this has affected me. I've already talked about the quarantine and everything like that. How 2020 started was I was just coming back from the UK. I was, back in American life, getting used to American life, doing my own thing. And I even went back to Ramapo and started taking classes there for my final semester. And I even had two internships. I was also in a relationship at the time. The, and, that's life was pretty mundane. I was just going to class, which was definitely a lot of work on its own because it was my last semester. I had a lot of stuff to get done. I had my classes, I had my assignments, I had uh, my internships. I just had a lot to focus on to make sure I graduated. And when March rolled around, everything was kind of put to a halt. Now, what I mean by this was the pandemic and just how it's affected me. I brought it up on the previous video called How the Quarantine has affected us musicians. And what I want to bring up there is just that really affected me both physically and mentally because I stopped focusing on things that would affect me seriously in my health and all that. And on top of that, the relationship that I was in from the beginning of this year ended. It also ended in March, and that definitely took its toll on me. And the other issues that went on definitely didn't help. I I stopped I stopped practicing my instruments. I stopped focusing on anything that benefited me besides going to class and getting my assignments done. I just didn't have the mindset to focus on anything and to get stuff done, like do stuff for my music or even work out. Like that's as what some people know me or some people follow me on Facebook and the other podcast that I do with my friend Greg. Um, they know that I am very, very like aware of like taking care of yourself and the whole working out, taking care of your body. I'm very preachy with the exercise. I mean, that's another reason why I have the motto drink your water. Not just for the singers, not just for music, but just in general drink your water because that's a big part of your health. And I just stopped caring about that. I stopped focusing on that, and that was a big effect on me this year alone, and it really set me back a bit. I put on a lot of weight. I wasn't eating properly. I wasn't wasn't being active. I wasn't exercising, wasn't taking care of myself, wasn't taking care of my voice. And it really was a major setback, not just because of the pandemic, but because of what I chose to do during the pandemic that really set me back. And I know that a lot of people can be in the same boat as me with that because there's no real motivation from being in this situation because everyone that had concerts had to cancel, everyone that had gigs also had to cancel. People needed to figure out how they were going to record their music to, release everything. But I'm here to tell you that not everything this year was hopeless. I can honestly say there were some things that I really, really enjoyed out of this year, and I'm sure you guys have stuff that you enjoyed with this year as well. And I would love to hear that in the comment section. And but one of the few things I really enjoyed was finally releasing music by my band, and that was the Progress Avenue EP Take One. That was one of the most difficult situations I was ever in because I needed to figure out how I was going to record, mix, and master the music all together before the semester ended. Luckily, I had two of the most major or most important songs on that EP recorded before the pandemic got really bad. I recorded Scream It to the Sky and Avenue of Progress at a professional studio not too far from where I lived, and I got that done. And I had to figure out how I was going to record Skyline of Love, Rise Above, and that was the biggest obstacle that I had to. That was one of the biggest obstacles I had to cross in this year alone, and it was quite a challenge, but I'm really glad things ended up the way that they did because it was definitely a learning experience. What I basically did with my guitarist and drummer is we had to record our parts separate, and they all gave the files to me for mixing and mastering, and that was definitely the big learning experiences. How can I take what I have so far and make it sound as good as possible? And I've never been put to that test or that extreme. Yeah, I took a lot of classes in college regarding recording my music and making it sound a certain way, but I feel like I really pushed myself to make my music sound good, and even more so what I've done wrong in mixing and mastering and recording. I think originally with this EP, I didn't I I didn't focus on certain things like panning and the sound levels and what I can do to make certain instruments stick out more and all that other stuff until maybe the fall of this year, maybe in late fall, sometime in November. I ended up remixing and remastering Skyline of Love while I had um a few of my friends that worked at that studio that recorded my song, my band's two songs, and they ended up doing that, and they ended up mixing and mastering that for a re-release for our EP, and that was definitely a noticeable improvement. It was a good opportunity for me to see what I did wrong and what I can do to improve from that. I figured I needed panning. If I needed to do panning, I needed to do panning. If I needed to make an instrument stand out more, I EQ it and make it stand out more. If I needed to add reverb, delay on another instrument, I'd had to do that. But it was all part of the experience. Uh, it was part of all the opportunities that were presented to me that I had left of what the pandemic did to us. And like I said before, tell me if for anyone else in the industry that had this similar struggle, I would really love to hear what you would have to say about that or say about, that obstacle you had to face. Another thing that I really enjoyed about this year was graduating college. I know like it wasn't the exact kind of graduation I would have wanted. Like the ceremony was very different because of the pandemic, and that really bummed me out, but I'm glad that we had a ceremony to even begin with, and I'm glad that I, managed to finish college and get my degree, and that was a big obstacle that took 5 years to happen. or 5 years to even make happen. And I would love to hear I would love to hear what you guys have to say about any situations that you've been in. It doesn't even have to be graduation. It could be, hey, I'm trying something new and I'm really liking it and this is happening to me and so forth. Um Another con that I had with this year alone was just my mental health. My mental health was very dormant, whether it was good or bad, and I just kind of let myself slip away at some points and just let it bother me and eat me up, and I let it control my life. And that was one of the things that truly set me back, both musically and just in my life as a whole. And I know that a lot of other people are in this struggle as well, saying that, I'm not in a good place mentally. I want to improve. I want to change. But how do I do that? First off, talk to the people around you. If they feel like you have not been yourself, talk to them about it. Maybe get to know what's going on. I don't have any psychological expertise, but I would suggest talking to professionals, talking to a therapist. There's even hotlines that I could link in the description. And that's my only advice to you guys. If you really feel like you're not where you want to be mentally or even physically, look for the outlets that would help you do that. Talk to professionals, see what you would want to change your life. I know, for example, that I've been, like I said before, I got really out of shape during this pandemic. And since September, beginning of September, beginning of September, I looked at myself and I said, maybe I want to change what I look like. I don't like how I look. I don't like how my body looks. Not that I hate myself or I hate my body, but I want to see what I can do to change. I want to see maybe I can get more in shape. Maybe I can maybe I feel like I can, you know, change how I look currently. I'm not saying I'm not saying you have to do this. I'm not saying if you're out of shape, you look horrible, you're ugly or anything like that. But if you feel miserable because you aren't happy with the way you look, with the way that you feel about yourself, you have to change. And I've said this before in another podcast that I've been in. Sometimes you have to change whether you want to or not. It just happens. Change happens to us all, and I think that that's what this year was. It was a year of big change, and it was a year that people saw things clearly and saw, hey, this isn't for me. Hey, this is something that I want to try and be better at. This was just a year of new vision, which is why people called it the year of vision 2020. And that was my biggest takeaway. I wasn't liking everything. Hell, I could openly say this was probably one of the lowest points in my life. I felt like I was nothing. I felt like I was a loser. I felt like I was just a nobody. I wasn't going to get better from this. But you always have to you always have to take it one day at a time and think, am I doing what can I do differently that I from today into tomorrow? What do I want to do to improve? Do I want to get better at learning this song? Do I want to get better at hitting these notes? Do I want to get better at physically being able to perform? Do I want to get better at just anything in general? Do I want my mental health to improve? Do I want to have a good stage presence when I perform? These are all questions that you have to ask yourself, and these are questions that I've continuously asked myself. I look back and I think that, yeah, there are a lot of improvements that I made, but I still have a long way to go, and I know a lot of other people are still stuck in a rut because of the effects of, the pandemic and what this year has how this year has been for them. But it's all about taking it one day at a time. Life isn't always going to be hard. Just cuz you don't have it figured out now doesn't mean you're not going to have it figured out in the future, a month from now, 2 months from now, a week. You don't know, things will change, things could change, things are always going to change. And that's the one thing I'm always going to look back on with this year. Things are always going to change, whether you want them to or not. It could be a good change or it could be a bad change. But one thing is, and I could just say with this could apply to music as well. Don't lose your way. If you start losing your way, that's when you start slipping, and that's when you truly are not yourself. If you learn, like, for example, say you're a guitarist or you a guitar player and you really love doing it, but some other affairs or personal affairs could get into your life and affect that. Say that, hey, you surround yourself with people that constantly party and drink and do drugs and all this other stuff, and that gets in the way of practicing, uh, that gets in the way of focusing on your goals, and eventually you're going to be so stuck in that you're not going to know how to get out. You're not going to know how to do that, how to stay truly stay on your purpose, or truly stay on that motivation. Sometimes playing the guitar and being in music is not for you, but the only way you can determine that is if you grind and grind and grind. Because being stuck in a rut and saying, this is the best that I'm going to do, I can't improve, that's setting yourself up for failure. That's setting yourself up for disaster. That's peaking. And I hate to say it, peaking is the worst thing a musician can do. And it's the worst mentality a musician can have. You can be given with absolutely nothing, and you could still find a way to persevere. And I've learned that in many different ways. And I know that a lot of other people are wondering, hey, I love doing music, but something's getting in the way of that. Figure out what's getting in the way of that and either get rid of it or compromise, because there's always a way. When there's a will, there's a way. And that's what I learned about 2020. Sometimes and sometimes it also has to do with the people in your life. You might love the person you're around, be their best friend, be boyfriend and girlfriend, be married, whatever. Any sort of relationship, whether it's a friendship or a dating relationship, it could apply to whatever. That you can't always expect that to work out, and you can't always expect things to work out even in a band. You might say, "Hey, I want to be in this band right now. I like these guys. I can still write music with them, but I don't feel the chemistry." That's totally fine. It's always up to you on what you want to do. That is on your tools and your decisions and how you go about it. Just learn just just learn to stay motivated. That's my big lesson for the end of this year, is to stay motivated, because once you stop that, that's when that's when things start going awry. And that's my big advice for everyone to of 2021, is to stay motivated. I Another thing I would love to hear you guys say or comment down below is, what are your goals? What do you want to do in 2021? I'm not going to call it a New Year's resolution, because I don't really believe in them. I don't think that they're really something that motivates people. What I want to say to you guys is what 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 do you have what do you hope to accomplish in 2021 or around 2021? Like what do you want further what do you want to go further in that you haven't gone further in this year? These are the big questions that I want to ask you guys. That's the big question. That's even the big question I ask myself every day is how do you want to go further with this? What are you going to do to go further? And that's all there is to it. I my biggest expectations or my biggest goals that I want to do is get get back into the recording, get back into recording industry, get back into doing recording music, like recording and mixing music, working for studios, getting into audio engineering. And another goal of mine is to finally release an album with my band, finally make more music, start performing again. Hopefully this pandemic will start ending soon. We can't guarantee that it's going to end immediately, but we can only hope. And another goal is just crush my fitness goals. I'm I'm trying to make this go down more and become more firm, get more abs, get more muscle. I'm that's always my big that's one of my big goals of 2021, and I'm looking to how am I going to stay motivated to keep doing this? What's going to keep me positive? What's going to keep me optimistic about it? Because this was a year that really tested people's faith, tested people's patience, and it tested to see how people were going to feel about their lives as they know it. And I know it was a big test for me. I had a lot of my ups, but I also had a lot of my downs. But I look at going into a new year as an opportunity. Yeah, it's scary. It might not always be a good time. It might not always be a good year, but you could always find out how to improve. And if you need to change, change. That's all there is to it. And before I end this, drink your water. I cannot preach that enough. This goes for musicians and people in general. I cannot stress that enough. That is always going to be the motto of this podcast. Drink your water. I, I cannot stress that enough. I will bring that up again in the next singing lesson that I will make this week. But that's how I want to end it, guys. I hope you all have a fantastic new year, and I hope everyone has a great night. And try not to get too drunk. Don't drink too much. But to each their own. I hope you guys have a lot of fun tonight, and I hope you guys have a happy new year. Guys, like, comment, share, and subscribe if you want to see videos similar to this one, or you want to see more live shows or eventual physical live shows. I will eventually start going to StreamYard or another live streaming service. I know I've been delaying it, but it should be relatively soon. I will let you know as soon as I start making it and everything like that. Guys, one more again, drink your water. Do not forget that. And as always, stay tuned.